All right, everybody. It is Tuesday night. It is time for our weekly episode of Conversations with Commodores, and we have got a treat for you guys. Class coming in class of 90, Clint, Biggie Small. How are you doing tonight, bud? I'm so glad to see you. I'm so looking forward to this conversation tonight.
Thanks, Bernard. Glad to be here. I'm excited to talk with you and share some stories. And we had a great memories of Vanderbilt. Really proud of going there, and it's opened so many doors for me throughout my life, and made a bunch of great friends. And I'm still texting with today, different groups of players. And it was a very pivotal point in my life, and I'm really proud to have gone there.
Two things immediately stick out, but we gotta stay in that time frame, and then we'll jump back to your time growing up in Austin. We got to talk about who gave you the nickname. And for those who don't know what that nickname references, give a little history of that.
Sure. So came in the fall of '90. Watson Brown, coach, recruited us. We had a class of 22 players in my class, I believe. And anyway, we freshmen came in about 3 days before, the upperclassmen. So say we got there on a Friday, something like that, seemed like. And we get through the morning practice, and then I don't know, we're at the training table or something, and Derek Bozier, big boss man, he comes up to me, and I don't know, he showered, saw my ass, but he's like, "God damn, Small, you have the biggest ass of any white man I've ever seen." And he's like, "You're Biggie Small." And from then on, I've been Biggie Small, and it stuck around the football team. But then Bill Sullivan, who's class below me, one of my best friends, and our boys grew up together and played sports all here in Austin together. So, but Sully brought it back to Austin, the nickname. And so now, I mean, I'll be walking around, and there's people that just know me by Biggie Small. From big boss man Derek Bozier, saying I had the biggest ass of any white man he's seen.
Well, and Sully's watching right now. Is how much truth in there, Sully, to that story? But here, this leads me to the other question. Back in the day, you were playing interior line. You are not still shaped like an interior lineman. You have done a fabulous job of getting in shape, but what do you do now for either exercise or mobility, or is there anything in specific that you have held as a mantra for you?
No, sir, not a ton. There's a group of guys that we hike. We call it hiking the hills here around the neighborhood. It's more of a kind of a brisk walk, but we do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:15 in the morning, and then we were doing Tuesday, Thursdays at Coach Mo's, which is a workout place right around the corner. And so I've been doing that for about 10 years, but nothing special, just chasing kids more than anything else. And, busy schedules otherwise.
Do you ever get out to Mount Bonnell and do any hiking
Sure,
around there?
sure. I get up to Mount Bonnell. That's where actually where my wife and I got engaged, up there in Mount
Oh,
Bonnell.
that's fantastic. I've
Yeah,
I've been out there many times. I'll tell you my
yeah,
story offline, the history, going to the caves, to see the bats, all of that
sure.
good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, for those of us, I'm going to stick with Austin for just a second, but for those of us who are Alabama barbecue snobs, for you Texas barbecue fans, and I'm not talking about all these well-known big
Right.
advertisers. Where's a secret, an Austin secret that next time I visit, we got to go?
So Terry Black's is arguably the best barbecue, right? And they came from
Really?
Black's Barbecue out of Lockhart, and then
Yeah,
Son came
yeah.
in, so he's opened up a couple of Austin locations, and it's absolutely the best. There's one down on Barton Springs. We have a little barbecue joint right down the street, Birch Barbecue. It opened up on the University of Texas campus.
Mhm.
They're all big. His granddad played baseball there, and there's a bunch of Texas Longhorn stuff. And they've closed down those others, but we have one right down the street still, and it's a good little watering hole. It's not the best barbecue, right? But it's kind of a joint, and you just kind of go in there, and you'll always see somebody that you recognize. And so maybe Sully's in there one day, or high school guy I grew up with, or one of my father's friends or whatever. It's just a pretty good little
Right.
joint.
That's the best kind of place right there.
Yeah.
All right, it's already starting. Brian Josie says he needs a full body view. He wants you to stand up because he doesn't believe that you're in any kind of
Just
shape.
hey, no, Josie likes to body shame me, and we're on a text with Akis and Josie and Koron and Vinny and yeah, we all like to shame each other. So I
See,
don't even.
some of those guys were my Akos and Corin. Those were some of my teammates. My
Sure.
senior year, they were freshmen.
Yeah.
So sure. That's all right. And I'm not so sure that Brian has accepted my invitation to come on the show.
Well,
So
I mentioned to you one time, Josie needs to come on, and you got to partner him up with Science, right? Because the two of them were partners in crime and got into lots of fun.
my theory is, though, Clint, is that the statute of limitations has not run on everything.
That's
So I think they're waiting until 2027 before I get them
right.
on the show. So
Uh-huh.
that's their story, not yours. Let's talk about growing up in Austin. Texas high school football may be the best in the country. You went to, I think, Stephen F. Austin, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about high school or even middle school or junior high football and how much was it just a central part of your life, if it was, and was football your main sport, or were you a sport of the season kind of a kid?
No, football is my main sport. Quite honestly, I wasn't super athletic. I was just I was competitive and was relentless. I think that's what Watson saw in me.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Grew up in a football family. My grandfather played at Texas. My other grandfather played at North Texas. My father played at Texas. Just kind of, it's what we did. We grew up doing that. Played a little, pop on basketball, youth basketball, a little youth baseball. But kind of when I got to about 12 years old, I realized that wasn't a path for me, and spent that winter and spring out at the farm, working out there, going down to the coast fishing and stuff like that. But football was great. Had a great high school. We weren't overly competitive. We had a lot of fun together, and we tried real hard. But we were a inner city school, if that makes any kind of sense. And when I say that, the we can talk for days, but suburb schools, even back then, are the strength, and for sure now, suburb schools just run Texas football.
What class were you guys ranked in?
I guess at the time we were 5A, and that was the highest,
Mhm.
right? So um, that was the highest classification. It goes up to 6A, D1, and D2 now. So
Well, I was going to say back in the 80s, 90s, and maybe even into today, I just don't follow it as closely. Some would have said that 5A Texas football is the next level above high school, but before college, because there's just so many kids. I mean, I don't know how many graduated with you or came through your years who went on to play any level of college ball, but it would be hard pressed to find a high school in Texas back then that didn't have kids who went on to
sure.
play the next level.
Yeah. We had my quarterback could have gone anywhere. He ended up going to Rice to that's where his father went, and felt comfortable down there. He was going to medical school, and that was his choice. One of my best friends actually was my roommate at Vanderbilt my freshman year, Jamie Matthews. He
Mhm.
walked on and was set to got a call to special teams meeting on a Sunday, and he traveled as a walk on to a few games and was gonna play on special teams. And we went to the gym on a off weekend, and I stepped on his ankle and rolled his ankle, and it was black and blue, and so he lost that opportunity, and he still kind of blames me for that deal. But we had a bunch of, we had 4 or 5 guys that kind of went on and had a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When did you hit your growth spurt growing up?
It was probably junior and senior year of high school. I didn't make varsity until my junior year. Uh, and so it was really kind of my junior year when I kind of finally spurred up a little bit, got up to about 6'2" plus, and started kind of putting on some weight, and got to where I could move some people around a little bit.
I was going to say, did you go from like sophomore weighing, I'm going to make this up, but you can tell me, 200, and then you come in junior year, you're weighing like 240, and then senior year, you're like 270 or something. You just got up
Well,
here.
high school, the biggest I ever got was about 240. And so, and then I started putting on weight when I got even, obviously more when I got up to Vandy. But we were, back then linemen weren't nearly as big as they are now.
Oh, sure.
And,
That's a whole generation ago.
Yeah, right, exactly. So my senior year, I was about 240 playing. Yes, sir.
When I was at Vandy just before you, 86 to 89, I don't think we had a 300-pounder on the roster.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have our offensive line when I was those first couple of years before I got hurt. We'll talk about that all that later. But I mean, Brothen was our center. Brothen, when he was maybe 275, I would think. Yeah. Our guards, Ryan Bell, kind of the same way. Mike Sell for a little while. Vinny was tackle. Dahlberg playing, I guess he played right tackle for us. I mean, he could barely weigh 255. I mean, he would have to put weights in his pants to weigh that.
Yeah. And Brothen was the guy I was thinking of. He being my teammate as well.
Yeah.
He was probably as close to 280, not sniffing 300.
Right.
But now, I don't know if you looked at our both offensive defensive lines this year. I read some stat that we had the largest, heaviest, and tallest on average on D line and O line in the country. In the conference.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That just blew my mind.
Right.
Incredible.
Yeah.
When did you, as a kid, when did it start percolating in your mind? Maybe I want to play on the next level. When did schools show interest? When did you start thinking or maybe talking with family? Heck, with your family's history, you may have been like in third grade. That's
right.
What you do.
I think it was always there, right? Because my family's history. And so it's always a dream and a goal, right? It was something I wanted to do. And I'm very glad that I received the opportunity to do it. And, back then, without social media, without computers, without email, right? You'd get a flyer in the mail and you'd fill out a questionnaire.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd mail them off, right? The University of Vanderbilt would send, University of Tennessee, whatever. Everybody would send questionnaires to the head coach. Head coach would send something back, and that kind of filled all that out. And then there were some local recruitings that kind of went out and did all that. Getting tape, right? It was mailing in VHS.
VHS tapes, that's right.
Your coach would mail a VHS tape. And so our senior year, I had two really good games offensively. I was playing both ways. Offensive defense, I had two really good. He sent those two games only, right? And because there's no way for them to see otherwise. And I guess Coach Christofelt was recruiting me, and he saw those, and that's kind of how I got up there.
Rick was my quarterback coach for 3 years.
Okay, yeah. And is he still coaching? He's with the Bucks, or
he just retired. He coached Gronk and the Patriots.
Okay.
Super Bowl a few years back with Brady. He's now happily retired at Lake Oconee outside of Atlanta.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Clint, my dad famously would tell others that when I would get those recruiting questionnaires,
right,
that I was now being recruited by Texas A&M, Florida State, Southern. I mean, you name it.
Right.
It's every senior kid who has any interest or it shows any talent gets these questionnaires.
Right.
But a proud dad, my son's getting. I'm like, let's pump the brakes there a little bit. Now, here's a somewhat serious question: did you ever entertain as a kid not playing college ball? With all the family members, particularly your dad, grandpa, all that playing. Did you ever entertain just being a regular student, or was that just not something that really was something that was going to head you? You knew you were going to play.
I was going to play. Yes, sir. I was going to play. I had, was looking at, we talked about it offline a minute ago, was talking to SMU a little bit, talking to TCU a little bit at the time. Texas, Coach McWilliams, wasn't size. The size was starting to getting bigger. He offered me a gray shirt and opportunity to come in there, and red shirt and gray shirt come in. That was probably more from family ties than anything else. And, had, like some of us, service academies and offers and Ivy League offers and things like that. Wanted to, parlay a strong education with football, but it was always I'd always planned to play football.
Mhm. All right, Brian, Josie, I'm going to ask this question, but I'm only going to ask it under the presumption that you will be coming on the show next month. We're going to jump ahead because I got to go through this because this is going to be funny, I think. Ask him how many fights he started at practice.
Yeah.
So let's just run into it. Do you have a favorite victim?
No, no.
Or sparring partner, I should say.
Well, so my coming into college football moment was there were two of them, and it was right there freshman year during two days. And first was we ran an Oklahoma drill, right? And Jonathan
Highly
Daniels,
illegal now,
right? Oh yeah,
completely banned.
so the first guy I went up against was JD, Jonathan Daniels, and you played with him. I mean,
Out of
he
St.
had more
Louis, a
muscles.
hell of an athlete.
He had more muscles on him than
Oh
any,
yeah.
just yoked. And so I go hit him, and I had some good leverage on him. And he came out of high school as a safety, and then they rolled him down the linebacker, and I kind of got the best of him on that, and running back scored, and I was kind of proud of myself. I was like, okay, here we go. And then come back the next day and put me in front of Derek Sarter. And yeah, Soto rolled me up pretty good. I don't remember much, but I lived through it. And so I was like, okay, well, then I can play because I was alive. And but I got in a few scuffles. And then early on, Coach Brown pulled me aside or after practice, and he said, Clint, you're the one over there getting all those scuffles. And I said, yes, sir. I'm sorry about that. I'll stop that. He just looked at me and said, don't stop. Keep doing it. Mm-hmm. But that year, that was his last year, right? We'd gone 1-10, and we went 1-10 that year. And our defense that year wasn't real strong. Yeah. Had a bunch of great guys. The following year, our defense was same group of guys, was very strong. Yeah. Right. And he told me to keep pressing buttons. And so I did that, and I found myself in a few scuffles every other practice.
Clint, you know what it was, and I wasn't even there, but I've heard enough about your time there. It was the intensity, and it was intensity that was needed because let's be honest, when my team goes 1-10 my freshman year, 1-10 my senior year, and then you guys the next year go 1-10, there's not a lot of intensity.
So no, that's when the Donardo comes in and it really ratchets it up a whole nother level and a whole other, So, but yeah, that's what he was looking for. I mean, and he rewarded me with traveling as a freshman that was redshirting and wasn't going to play, and I traveled to just about every road game, and that was awesome, because I was around a lot of the older guys that I wouldn't have been around, staying back home, and so it was good.
What was probably not good, were you on the team that went to SMU to reopen the season?
Yes, sir. That was not a that was not a good start to the season.
I don't know if that's going to bring out more PST symptoms in you than bell buckle, but we gotta go to SMU. We're going to talk about your recruiting story in just a second, but I want to stick with going home to SMU. What was that? Not home, but Dallas. What was that like, and how many tickets did you end up having to get for that game?
So, first game I was going to play. I was going to redshirt that year, so just my parents came up, and but it was kind of a wow factor. I mentioned earlier, Jamie Matthews, my roommate that freshman year, and his brother was on that team as a walk-on. Half that SMU team were walk-ons, right? Because they started two years before out of the death penalty. Yeah. They beat us.
Wasn't 89, 90, maybe their first year with then, I don't know what it was called back then, but Division I.
I think it was their first victory back. I think we were their first victory back to D1 status, which was just, oh crap. And then we fast forward a week later and I think it was a week later, and we beat LSU at home, right?
Yeah, that season just did not. It started out just so weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess what I was looking for was your impressions. I don't know if you were in the sidelines or in the stands for the game. I know you traveled, but what were your impressions of playing? I know high school football in Texas, you can have 10, 15, 20,000 folks at a game, but now well, SMU wasn't that big of a stadium, but
No, we're playing it. We played at their old. It's called not being. It's where they're playing now. When before they hit the death penalty, they were playing over at the Cotton Bowl, I
right,
believe.
right.
And
Yeah.
they hit the death penalty, they're off, and so they go back to I don't know what's the name of the stadium. But anyway, they go back to their on-campus stadium, and so it. I was at a game there last fall for a friend of mine, son is playing, and it's 35,000 to 40,000 students are seating now. It was less than that then, and it wasn't full. It wasn't more than it wasn't much, quite frankly.
Sully said Ford Field is what they call it,
Ford
where they
Field, yeah,
play now. And he also wanted to remind the viewing audience and us the next year when SMU came to Vanderbilt, we won that game.
yeah, yeah.
Took a little bit of the sting out, but not quite. But I want to back up. I want to talk about
Yep.
the recruiting for just a minute. You said you had gotten, I guess, cursory looks or courtesy looks just from family ties, but nobody's going to just give you a courtesy look because of your name. You had skill set, clearly.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider other schools besides Vanderbilt? And when did Vanderbilt get on your radar? Because coming out of Texas, not everybody knows, this academic SEC school that's over in Nashville.
So you're right about that. We Thanksgiving break, my parents and I we didn't make the playoffs, and so we took off and headed up to the East Coast to go look at schools. Vanderbilt was going to be one of ours to go meet coaches, and they were going to be at the end coming back from the East Coast, and we ran out of time because we actually really enjoyed our stay, and we stayed over an extra day looking at Army.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, so it was more my mother than anything else was saying, okay, you gotta parlay this, and let's get a really higher end education versus going to, like, we didn't even go look at Texas State. We didn't go look at some other smaller schools around Texas or whatever, and that just wasn't the deal. And so looked at all the Ivies, I had offers from all the service academies, TCU and SMU. We're talking to them a little bit, and then Vandy came on towards the very end. When I say the end, in December, mid-December, we didn't get an opportunity to go down and visit, and Coach Christopher called and said, we've seen the tape and really like you. And so come up here on a visit. So went up there on an official, somewhere over Christmas break. That's when our officials were, right? Everybody just kind of went, over about a 2 or 3 week period. I guess, after semester started in January, something like that. And really liked it. And I knew of Vanderbilt, because of the academics. And I also knew of Vanderbilt because of knowing them that they weren't the strongest football program, but bought into what Coach Roosevelt and Watson were selling, and let's get this education and let's go turn this thing around.
But Clint, that speaks volumes for the recruiting process and you and your family's decision making. Because if you have the options to go to one of the service academies or to play in the Ivies, clearly all of those are strong academic environments, but maybe not quite the level of competition
Right.
that the SEC offers. Now, granted, say Army, for example, does play Notre Dame, does play some of the big schools, but maybe was it the cold weather another factor? Maybe you didn't want to you didn't want to be in West Point, or maybe you didn't want the commitment to the military.
I didn't want the commitment for number one, as far as that goes. And then as you get to know me, and as some of these other guys that are on here know me, I wasn't going to be a very good fit in an Ivy League school. I just wasn't going to be a good fit personality wise. And so it worked out, Southern University. And so really, really happy with my choice.
All right, I've checked with our football alums who are lawyers in Tennessee.
Yeah.
They say you're on safe grounds. You're that old that the statute has run.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that women and children might be watching.
Right.
Here, I want to know who was your host for your recruiting visit.
Yeah.
And I just want you to nod yes or no if you
Just
went to the
yes,
following.
yes,
Josie's already putting it in the comments where you visited.
yes.
Who was your recruiting host? Who,
Eric Weir. Eric Weir was my
such a
host.
good one.
Yeah, Eric out of Houston, class above me. He and Gandolfo were out of Houston, and but anyway, we had a few Texas guys on the team, and
Yeah.
but anyway, Eric was my host. Yeah.
Eric, just as a side note, what an underrated
Oh,
athlete.
how about this? Underutilized,
Oh, tremendous.
underutilized.
Tremendous. End up playing in the pros.
Played in the pros. He's a
Yeah.
scratch golfer. I mean, he could do it all. He
Yeah.
was
I
great.
need to get Eric on the show. I hadn't
Yeah,
made contact with him yet. That's right, Stratford High School in
yeah.
Houston. Um,
But yes, we did. They did take us out to that establishment.
mhm. Where during the late 80s and into the 90s, that was one of the places in Lower Broad where now I don't know if I doubt it's still there, but back then it was suspect if you
Yeah.
went down Lower Broad. There were really only about three
Well,
reasons
it
down
was a
there.
selling point. I'd never been to a place like that before,
Now,
and
when you were looking through the pamphlets and the brochures, was that in
you
there
know,
somewhere?
that went on the itinerary, no sir.
Not on the official itinerary, that's
Right,
for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
Guys, I've got Clint Biggie Small with us. He came in the class of fall of 90 and graduated in 94, played for Watson for a year and then DiNardo. And now we're getting ready to you talked about JT, Jonathan Daniels, JD out of St. Louis. I want to kind of talk about that freshman year and the transition that sometimes guys take to it like a duck to water. They academically, socially, athletically, they're good. But for the other 98% of us, there is a real transition. I redshirted. You mentioned gray shirting earlier, and I bet some of this generation don't even know what gray shirting was back in the day. Your freshman year coming in, did you know what your status was going to be? Meaning redshirting versus playing versus whatever else that the coaches talked to you about? And how did your mindset adapt to that?
Well, I assumed going in I was redshirting. Right, I didn't have a big enough frame and strong enough at that point. Um, Interestingly enough, I got recruited as a defensive tackle, and so I went to my that morning freshman two-a-day defensive tackle. Lunchtime, Coach Good comes to me and says, "Hey, Small, you're coming to the offensive line room." Like, yes, sir. I'm walking in and go, "Small, you play center, right?" And I said, "Well, it's been a while." I said, "Well, look, it says here on your questionnaire that you played center in Pop Warner, so we didn't have a center as a freshman, so we are trying to run three. So that's how I became center at lunch, first practice. So
And
I
wait.
knew,
Let me pause you right there.
yeah.
Who are you taking snaps with? Who are your QBs behind you?
QB, true freshman QB was Gabe Watley. So
Hmm.
Gabe's out of right outside of Atlanta, Georgia,
Hmm.
and so Gabe was quarterback for our class. And then once we got into regular two-a-days in practice, scout team, my boy Joe P was my
Mayor of
quarterback.
Murfreesboro, Jeff
Yeah,
Peebles.
yeah, Joe P. And then brother man Jeff, I was get spring or later with him. I mean, he was playing at that point. I can't remember if he was playing offense or playing. I know he's playing defense, but he was. I think at that
Yeah,
point
they
he's still
moved
trying to
him
play. He was still
around.
trying to play quarterback. I think
Yeah, yeah,
that his sophomore year
yeah.
until he switched over to free safety full time.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I knew and was fine with it. Academically, I felt like I was going to be fine, but you get drawn into freshman year college life, and I, as much as you get that phone call from Brad Bates, three was the number 34809 or something like that was his phone number, and calling you to sleeping in, skipping class, right? And we still slept in and skipped class and didn't have as good of a first semester as I should have. I got called into the academic dean, I guess, beginning of the spring semester, and like, "Hey, Clint, let's start doing what you came here. You're supposed to be doing." And so I'm like, I started turning it around after that. And
Was that a wake-up call, or you kind of knew it was coming and just braced for it?
yeah, it was certainly a wake up call. Quite honestly, it was embarrassing that I got called in that regard for me. My parents never said anything about. They got the grades, and they never checked on me. They didn't do it in high school. We check on our kids now all the time. We have opportunities to keep up with their grades and their portals and things like that. And my parents never did. So it was kind of there was not a whole lot of checks and balance other than study hall for 4 hours every day after practice, and that was enough punishment alone to try to get your grades up so you can drop that down to an hour or two.
Was that in Magoogan? Is that
I was in Magoogan, yes, sir. They just built that new academic center or built it out.
Back in our day, there was no such thing as the student athlete checking yes or no to allow for parents to see the grades.
Yeah.
Back then, it was just assumed they would get the grades. Now there's so many protections and all this crap in place that parents may not ever even know until the kid's either kicked out of school or a dean calls or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that Clint's very intelligent dude, Josie. He played center. That just is a given. We know that. Brian Diggs.
Big Diggs.
What's up?
Hey, buddy.
OJ Fleming just joined us, but did y'all cross one year or you graduated when he was coming in?
Yeah, I graduated. He was when OJ was coming in. Yeah. And then my junior, senior year, get into that, but I was hurt and was still around the team. But didn't know those classes. Well, my senior year for sure didn't know that class as well as I did the others.
Let's stick back to maybe freshman going into sophomore year. Were you starting to bulk up? Were you starting to get stronger as well?
Yes, sir.
Was Magic? Did he have the what did he call it? I mean, it was the food hall, but it was the training table.
Training table. Yeah, Magic was there. I'm 90% sure that Magic was there our freshman year. I know he was.
He came on after. It was after us.
Yeah.
I know that.
So he started that summer of, I guess, 90. And so he's cooking great meals, and we do that. We practice in the afternoons, and everybody practices in the morning now.
Yeah.
Practice in the afternoon, hit training table, hit study hall. Yes, sir. Bulking up, getting stronger. Coach Bates was our strength coach. And then Donato comes in and brought in Coach Clark, strength coach. He had a little bit different mindset, a way of, building this up. So got a lot stronger.
Well, I wanted to talk about that transition. Watson on his way out. You guys were recruited by Watson. Donato comes in. Coach Donato was on the show a few weeks ago, and he talked a little bit about that. And it's always tough when a new coach comes in on a D1 level, and there are guys on the roster who he hasn't recruited. They may not fit his style. They may not fit his, what he's trying to do. So my question for you, Clint, is for you and your observations about just that. Did Donato did he take to the guys who were already on the roster, or was there clearly it was made known that some of these guys were not going to be here very long?
It was clearly made known that he was trying to purge the team, and in that, do it his way, make us tougher. All the adjectives, all the descriptions you could be, but it was known. And it wasn't just him. It was a lot of the staff, right? His coaching staff, right? And I wouldn't say you can different coaching styles, right? And everybody for every kind of sport.
I'm not saying one's right versus wrong. It's just different styles, different mentalities, different locker room, different expectations.
Yeah. So there's when I see it, and I've talked to my kids about it, and it's demand and versus demean, right? And so if you're demanding the best, which can also be a little aggressive, right?
Yeah.
But you kind of understand that. But then there's also demeaning, and he crossed over. They crossed over into that with a lot of guys, and it was known. I mean, there was And he talked about it. Donato, I was on it the other day, and he talked about it. That was the fall of 91. It's the first fall camp when he made us. I think it was fall 91. Anyway, we made us run 21, 30, 110s at the end of practice. We had 21 guys on IVs and all that. I mean, that he apologized for that, the other day when he was there. But yeah, that was he did. That's what he was trying to, that's what he thought he needed to build a team.
And you're right. Coach did address that a few weeks ago. Some regrets and some things that he tried and just can't get things back. But he was young. He was aggressive. He was trying to change the culture. He was trying to make the team better. And effectively he did. I mean, the scoreboard showed that. The records. Pardon me. And I promise we won't stay on this long, but I need some impressions about going to camp in preseason. I need you to share about the web school and a little bit of
sure
down there.
So Bell Buckle, and you had Derek Wilhelm on a while back too. So he was I don't think he goes by Little Willie anymore, but he was Little Willie to me. And Derek and I were roommates, and we got along great. We had a real strong freshman class. Anyways, we got along great. We're roommates, and my at that point my back was really jacked up and had been. But so I'd take 3 Advil at about, my alarm go off at 5 o'clock, and then it'd go off at 6. I'd take 3 more. Derek would help me get out of bed, and I'd skip breakfast and I'd just walk down to the go see Wig and Norwig and Boz and get taped up and get going and get after practice. The back was really hurting that fall camp, and it was tougher than nails. I mean, the 2 days is one thing, which kids don't have anymore, but 2 days when you're completely sequestered with literally nothing, right? No outside source of news, of TV, of social anything. You're football. You go back and we're changing in the gym, right, on the bleachers. There was a pool that we kind of got access to a couple times to soak in. You eat, you go back to your dorm room, you sleep. A lot of us got into FCA while we were there because it was an opportunity to get out of some sort of meeting, right? To go and just to clear our minds. And
even some of the non-religious guys,
right? Yeah, let's just give me an hour to get away from all this mess. It was tough.
Have you ever shared with your son some of these real experiences, like a little bit you're getting into right now? Could you imagine, or could your son imagine his group of friends, his teammates, going through what you went through at Bell Buckle?
I don't think so. It's not because it's just coached differently. Certainly 2 days aren't there. There's so much awareness of people's feelings and how things can be taken the wrong way. And so he wouldn't understand. I mean, we can't discipline him. I disciplined my son probably a little harder than most parents did, just in talking to him, and wasn't afraid to box his ears when he was a kid and things like that. But no, he's heard stories from Akis has come to visit some other guys, and then my high school guys. He's heard stories, but yeah, he wouldn't understand it very well.
I love Pat's stories. Pat was on a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Remarkable athlete. Won a dunk contest at halftime.
Well, let's settle down a little bit. He did not. He had athletic skills, but he wasn't a great athlete. He was hurt literally every single semester.
All right,
he will tell you he never ran a 110. He never did any cardio. Nothing.
Some say he was a little smarter than the average ball. Well, he was able to do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's great.
Yeah, it's night and day. We walked uphill both ways in the snow to school. That's our parents' generation.
Right.
yours is surviving bell buckle, and I'm sure, and I don't know your son, and no offense to him or that generation, it's almost a goldfish mentality of not mentality of attention span
Yeah,
because of social media, because of the phones, because it's just different. That's
yeah,
all.
it's just different. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, really is. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and this will be the last thing about bell buckle, I promise. I know from all the guys who've been on the show, whether they were trainers or players or coaches, whoever's been out there, they've all had their perspectives. Was it, can you quantify, was it more mental or physical that took a toll on you? Or can you separate that?
So that first year, like I say, my back was jacked up. I sprained my knee. We were wearing knee braces and it bent, and I had a secondary MCL. I had stitches in my elbow. Brother actually had got hurt during practice. I think he did something with his jaw a little bit, hairline, and so I kind of got elevated. Dueling was there, Signs was there,
Mhm.
and but was doing a bunch. So it was physically exhausting, but it was the mental side of it, and I appreciate that at this point in my life. You didn't appreciate it then.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Older generations talk about. I'm not even going to compare to what my father went through and what people went through and different hardships,
Mhm.
but the mental fortitude that we developed um, has been lasting, and I appreciate it now.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily would wish that on anybody else, but it has served me well to understand that things are tough. Just you got to figure out a way to dig in, and there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, and the sun comes up tomorrow, and work your way through it. Work your way through this problem. Find a solution. Find a solution.
Well, along those lines, Clint, if you can kind of bring that lesson kind of forward into adulthood or into your profession or with the children, and maybe you've touched on it a little bit, but how
Oh,
is it that that mental fortitude has helped with things? It's helped you get through certain things in life. Oh, did we lose him? I don't know if he's
so professionally, I'm a builder, and so um, I lost you for a minute.
okay.
You
I'm
there?
here. Were you able to hear me? The
Okay.
question the
Yeah, I
question
can
that
hear
I
you.
had
Okay.
was about
So yeah.
that mental fortitude, those lessons from Bell Buckle. How did you bring those into adulthood?
So professionally, I'm a builder and residential, um, new construction and remodels. And building residential building is very personal for families, and it at times gets tense, right? Whether it be the
Mhm.
cost of a project, delays of a project, change orders. What I've worked my way through lots and lots of situations where you know uh, things weren't working out. And you got and so it's I've been fortunate to where I could kind of make my own schedule, and so I could be involved with my kids' sports and everything else, and my family. But at the same time, it's not a 9 to 5 job through the night and all the way the next morning.
It is Clint. I don't know if it's on my end or yours. You kind of
Yeah.
in and out a little bit, but I got the gist of those lessons, and I kind of want to come forward with a little bit of your experience on the field. And maybe if you, what was it about being in that huddle? And I don't know if y'all huddled up or went straight to the line, but what was it that maybe brought you the most joy about being on the field with your teammates, breaking a huddle, being in a big stadium? I don't know. Share a little bit of that memory, that core memory that you have about that time period?
Well, the linemen as a group are, bigger, uglier, nastier. Um, the skilled guys and moving around, and we're breathing heavy and we're sweating and when we're dirty. And you just sit there in the huddle and you come back and you're breathing hard. Somebody jumped off side and, Soto or whoever came in and practice, just mess things up. And then you're getting hollered at by the coaches. You turn around at the end of practice and you just kind of giggle about it. All you could do is laugh about it. Because if you took it so seriously, that's a great life lesson, right? You're gonna get yelled at. You're gonna disappoint. You're gonna fail. But you gotta have a little bit of humor with it and kind of get up and go to the next play. And so that's what I took from it, right? It's just it was a lot of fun, and everybody was in that same foxhole, if you will, and we're all working together for the same cause. And I made lots of mistakes. Guys, in the huddle made mistakes, probably not nearly as many as me, but we all picked ourselves up, and we're all still good friends 30 years later.
I always ask this, do you have a group text? And if so, what's the name of the text?
There's no name on it. I got a couple that I'm pretty kind of day to day. I mentioned Akis, Vinny, Tom Vincent, Chris Coron, Brian Josie, and Iron One, and Chicken Wing, Will Pryor, Alex Scarborough, Richard Sines, Jerry Vasquez, maybe a couple of others are on another one that are pretty regular.
That's awesome. Chicken Wing. I love Will. Will Pryor's the best.
Yeah, sure.
I love that guy. I got to hang with him a little bit at the bowl game here in Birmingham back in December. But if there's ever been a connector, a community guy, there's no one finer than Will Pryor, that's for sure. Awesome.
No, for sure. Yeah, he's the best, and he keeps up with everybody.
He does. He's still a teammate to everybody 30, 40 years later. That's for sure. Clint, let's talk about life after it was time to hang up the cleats.
Yeah.
I've talked about this on the show many times. It's hard sometimes for most people, most guys, because when you're done playing and it's time to move on to the next phase of life, most of the time it's not because that's what we want. Sometimes it's due to injury. Sometimes you graduate and you run out of eligibility. Sometimes you're lucky enough you go into the pros and again, injury, or maybe you just retire on your own terms. That's the rare occasion. For myself, I graduated. I knew I was done. I was ready to move on to the next phase. And my mindset in that last 6 months, almost a year, was just that. So it wasn't a hard transition for me. I know that you've gotten hurt, and that was tough to deal with, I'm sure. But talk about your transition out of the football world and into what I'm going to call the civilian world. Was it a tough transition for you?
It wasn't. I was fortunate enough to still be a part of the team my junior and senior year, and so that was great. There were some guys that took medicals that drifted off, and I'm still not as close with those guys today as I am with. Because of that, I was able to transition some into regular student life, if you will, and got to be close with a group of fraternity guys that were in the Phi Psi fraternity. There were about 3 or 4 of them that were walk-ons in my freshman class, and they ended up joining. They left football after freshman year, but they joined the Phi Psi fraternity. And so I had a little bit more time, and so got to go spend time having fun and doing stuff with those guys, and that they're lifelong friends now. And so kind of got to transition a little bit earlier. And then upon graduation, came back to Austin where I have.
All right, guys, we are back after a brief technical break. We're back with Clint Small. What we're talking about, we're going to pick back up. The question to you at the time, Clint, was that transition out of the football life to what I'll call civilian life. So I want you to share a little bit about your transition.
So I was saying, because I was injured, I got to kind of transition over to regular student life a little bit, and I made some great friends with some guys over in the Phi-Psi fraternity. They were 3 or 4 of them were walk-ons my freshman year, and Jamie Matthews, Martin Shea, and a couple other guys, and so started, hanging out with some of those guys when wasn't still around football, and meeting them, and had a little bit of a normal life. There's been, we've had guys on here kind of talking about how it is difficult to have a normal student life and be a football player.
Yeah.
And I will absolutely agree to that. My first 2 years. And so, by circumstance, had that opportunity. And so took advantage of that. And then upon graduation, came back to Austin, enrolled, got in grad school, started there. But I had a strong safety net of a family here and network. And so, just kind of transitioned back to Austin and started networking and started working after grad school. Yeah.
At what point after college were you able to transition away from the 7,500 calories a day and all that working out? Because if you think about this, in theory, your peak workout part of your life is that 18 to 23 year age. If you're not playing in the pros, you don't need to eat 8 to 10,000 calories. You don't need to burn all that. You don't need that much fuel. But that doesn't mean it automatically happens. Some guys dramatically lose weight over time. Some guys, unfortunately, balloon up because they don't know what to do. Can you share a little bit about your journey? The post football.
Sure. No, I started working on, getting in better shape as soon as I kind of got through playing. I needed to get some of that weight off to help deal with, ailments otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a goal. And I worked my way down. At one point, it was 5 or 6 years after graduation, I weighed 208 pounds. And so I cut, 65 pounds, and I wasn't healthy at 208, but I was really trying to get down.
You cut like 25% of your body weight.
Yeah.
Or more.
I leveled out at about 225 after that. When I was training, I trained for a marathon, was doing triathlons, mini triathlons, half triathlons. And then I settled in at about 225, and that's worked its way up to about 245. And then it kind of got back up to a little bit higher, and I'm back down a little bit. And so, but that transition started kind of early on. It took a while.
Well, if you're able to train for triathlons and those various just strenuous competitions, is it safe to say that your back was mostly healed, your knee was mostly healed, enough for you to be able to punish it, so to speak?
Yeah.
Training.
Yeah. So my back, it ended up just being a significant, but I got a big bone spur on my C7 disc. It's kind of pinching on my nerve in my left arm. So I still have, tingling in my left arm. And ultimately I would have tried to continue playing, but I failed my physical. And so they tested me specifically for that. And so, I would have found a solution and worked my way through it. So, I've lived with that my whole life since then. And, it wasn't debilitating, and been able to, have a normal active life otherwise.
You know, I told you I'm not a journalist, as we know, and I don't
Yeah.
have gotcha questions, but I did some digging on the dark web, and I have a video that I'm not going to show yet of your acting career.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to talk a little bit about that. Let's transition to that.
Sure. Uh, so I don't know if it was the same in your group, but we'd go to, of course, Friday night on the way to games. We the whole team would go take a bus and we'd go watch a movie, and we'd take the whole movie theater over, and everybody watched different ones. When Donato came in, we all had to go to the same movie, but when Watson was there first year, we'd go to different movies all around the 7 o'clock time start.
Mhm.
And then the rest of the year, we every weekend, we'd go to a movie on Sunday, and so anyway, at some point, I figured get back to Austin. I'm like, we're watching movies every week, and I'm like, I can do this. Isn't that hard? And yeah, Varsity Blues came around. Was shooting in Austin, and so I said, well, I'll go sign up, just see as an extra or something. And the football coordinator was an old referee from the area and recognized me and pulled me aside and kind of got my way in that way. And then I kind of got a few extra parts and got a little line. Ended up getting got a stuntman contract for a couple of days. So I've gotten residuals, gotten royalties for the past 20 years. It's about 10 cents every quarter these days. But
there you go.
Back in the day, it was like a $75 check every quarter or so.
Now, what do you charge for those 8x10 color
Those
photos
glossies,
of
right?
you in the whipped cream bikini?
Well,
How much
so
you charging those now?
yeah, I and Allie Larder's now on Landman, and she's did an amazing job on that. She was the cheerleader there, and I got to know her. Then I was not there on set that night when they were filming that. But
I don't know many.
yeah, I did, was around here otherwise some, and she was great. It was a long time ago too, 97 or something, but that was a lot of fun. And
Just so you know, and this is not going to be a shock to you, that my mole on the inside happens to rhyme with Sullivan.
yeah.
Let's now transition into the current. We got just a couple more minutes. So
Yep.
Clint, I really appreciate your
Sure,
time.
I'm having fun. It's great.
Coming back. You go from having your own sports career to now being a parent, and you now have children doing their thing. I learned very quickly with my children. I didn't play lacrosse growing up. I had zero credibility in the eyes of my daughter. So I just was quiet. I just turned it over to the folks who knew what they were doing. But if you have a son, for example, who comes and plays your same sport, that's a little bit different sometimes. And I guess where I'm going with this is, do all your children play sports? Kind of share a little bit about that journey now as a parent and being in the stands and letting them do their thing.
Well, I think Sully would tell you I really haven't been in the stands much. While I wasn't their coach in high school, I was very involved uh, in the high school programs. Been very involved with AISD, Austin Independent School District, and have worked with them specifically on in athletics and helping helping build out facilities, help all our schools get turf. Anyway, that's a whole side story, but I've been very involved. So coming out, I coached Ed in every sport. I didn't know, I don't know anything about basketball. I just taught them not to be silly and to try to concentrate, right? Same thing in soccer. I coached them in soccer, coached them in baseball. I don't know anything about baseball. But I was really herding cats. That was my job. And then I'd find an assistant coach.
That's a good example.
Yeah, I'd herd the cats, and
Yeah.
don't be silly, let's focus. And then I'd find a assistant that knew what he was doing. My wife coached my daughter in basketball. My daughter played flag football with us some too, in baseball, and then she settled in on lacrosse. And then she ended up going with those coaching lacrosse. But we were there every step of the way with both of them, and it's been great. They're both playing D1 college sports and
share about don't skip over that part. Share about that. Tell about the kids. Where are they?
My daughter is a sophomore at Dartmouth University, and she's starting on the lacrosse team. And she is 6 foot, 5'11" and a half, 6 foot lefty, and so it kind of stands out of her ability to do that. And so
What's her position?
she's playing attack. So
Did
she was
she
a
get mama's speed or you sneaky
and
doing small
so
speed?
I will say this, and Akis and all the guys, all the athletic ability with my children come from my wife, Allison. Allison, my wife she was all American basketball player at Denison, which is a D3 school outside of Columbus, Ohio, and so they got their skills and their competitiveness from her, and they kind of got my maybe my relentlessness and little toughness and from me, I guess we'd say. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I quickly found, at least with the daughter who played lacrosse in college, YouTube was my best friend. It
Sure.
educated me on the
Yeah.
women's game where I didn't have Alabama doesn't have any lacrosse history. So
Right.
I go to YouTube to secretly learn the sport. So I'd have some knowledge.
Yeah.
But
And then Ed, my son, is he graduated early this December, and he's enrolled at TCU and going there to play football. I hope he'll get back to baseball also, but he's got to focus on football. He's a slot receiver, and he's got they start spring ball in 2 weeks, and he'll have an opportunity to play as a freshman, I think, and so it's exciting.
Again, he's got to have some speed if he's playing on that side of the ball. Has TCU announced, because a lot of schools are not doing spring games this year, is TCU going to do any type of
I doubt that they do. They haven't announced it, but I think most schools are going to kind of fall into that same mindset, and I doubt that they do it.
Tell me if you've heard this. One of the motivating factors for not doing a spring game is because, and this is terrible, but this is how the game is evolved, or the sport. They don't want a lot of kids to have tape
Yep,
for transfer purposes.
that's right.
And the schools, like a buddy of mine who coaches, he said their spring game is going to be basically just a very vanilla kind of a scrimmage. They're not promoting it big. It's not ESPN. It's just get after it, 30 scripted plays or something like that. But I guess that's the sad reality of where the sport is right now.
Yes, and I'm hearing the same things. I mean, the players have access to their huddle. It's a different platform, and so they can copy that, take that down of them individually to some degree if they do hit the portal and share that. But just the naked eye viewing a wow factor of a second team quarterback dropping back and tearing it up out there. Well, your quarterback gets hurt in a spring game at another school. Let's call him. Let's see what he's doing.
That's right. That's right. But we could, particularly from your vantage point, being a dad with a kid at D1 right now. I'm sure we could talk for hours just about the state of the game, and we wouldn't solve any of the problems or the issues, but we could certainly work through that. And I may have that just kind of gave me an idea. I may invite you back with other former players whose sons or daughters are playing D1 sports. And that might be a pretty interesting conversation to have, but we'll pause that part. I
Sure.
have one last topic or one last area, Clint, that I want to hit. And you've really alluded to this several times throughout our conversations. I want to talk about, you're now like me, we're 20, 30, gosh, getting on 35 years for me, close to being removed from the sport, from our university. And it took me a while to come back into the fold just because I was done with the sport. But now I'm all in, as you guys know. And I'm very proud of my time at Vanderbilt. I'm very proud of having graduated from the school and represent it today. So that's the perspective. That's what I want to ask from your standpoint. What has it meant to you living in Austin, the heart of Texas country, the University of Texas being in your hometown? What has it meant to you all these years to be a Vanderbilt grad living there and having represented your university?
folks, when I tell them or they ask or they figure out that I went to Vanderbilt, they kind of jump back and they're wow. I mean, you went to Vanderbilt, and not. Whereas we'd all say, "Oh, you went to Vanderbilt, you dummy! How'd you get in there?" But no, they're saying it from a perspective of, "Oh my goodness, what a prestigious institution, and you have a degree from there." And it is very warming and very proud, right, to have graduated from Vanderbilt, and it has opened numerous doors for me, numerous conversations, and it is. We could talk about this in other future. It's to me, it's so easy to recruit to Vanderbilt, and why we're, maybe we struggle recruiting is beyond me, because Nashville's such a great town, but the Vanderbilt University is so well respected throughout the states, and to me, it is really easy. I'm friends and I mentor Cedric Alexander, the running back, and Ced's great, and he's went to LBJ, which is a crosstown school, and followed him, got to know him and his family a little bit, and taking him to lunch, and we talk when he's back in town, and we text some and back and forth, and I'm like, Ced, man, just stay in it, good, bad, or indifferent, when you have an uptime, downtime, and he hadn't any yet, and he really need downtimes, but just this degree is going to pay for itself in spades for you, in the long run. And he believes that, and it's so sellable. Quite honestly, I wish we did a better job.
I'm glad you brought him up. He easily, the last 2 years, could have left. He's got enough tape. He is athletic enough. He could have left easily.
Yeah.
The fact that he keeps coming back and doing, and now he's going to be a featured back. I'm so proud of that kid. I can't wait to see. Can't wait till next season.
Yeah, he's had opportunities. He's had, some of those outside inquiries,
right,
from with NIL stuff. And we've kind of talked a little bit about that. And he's sticking around. I mean, he chose it. I was at his signing ceremony, and he is a polished, buttoned up, amazing kid, and he gets it. And he knows it, and really proud of him, and proud of the university for what it stands for, and what what it's given to all of us.
He's also a fun follow on Instagram. He's
stuff
on there. Clint, I could keep you here forever, but we've had enough time for tonight to just get started, and I'm counting on all of these guys, Josie, Sully, all these guys. I need a group conversation, because all I'd have to do is say roll tape. I don't even have to talk, just let you guys chop it up. That'd be fun.
Well, one of my favorite of your episodes was with Thor and Arnouts, when y'all had them on together, and it was so I lockered between the two of them my freshman year, right? So the stories that I knew of them, and just it was amazing.
You have
those
just
two guys
unlocked. Well, if you remember, Donardi came on late, and I didn't tell those guys.
Yeah.
You're talking about three of my very closest friends. We all signed the same year.
Yeah.
I just saw Thor over the holidays. He lives down in South Alabama near my dad.
Yeah,
and I always hang out with Thor. Those are, we could talk, but you have to be offline.
Well, set it up. We'll get a group together. That'd be fun.
Well, guys, go ahead, Clint.
Well, and then also, what I haven't been able to, and we've talked about it with some of the groups on text, is getting back to more games, and it's because of kids sports just haven't been able to, and probably won't be able to for the next couple of years still. But I'm looking forward to when that time comes, when I can start spending more and more time, getting back together with all the guys.
Well, you better look at TCU's schedule, because our Commodores, Halloween weekend are invading Austin, and you and I need to talk.
They are, and I'm planning on being here that game. So we'll get together.
You might want to tell Ed, sorry, son, we're going to catch that game.
Yeah, that's right.
Guys, Clint Biggie Small, been wanting to have him on forever. This is fantastic conversation. Clint, thank you so much, my friend. I'm glad.
Thanks, Bernard. Really appreciate you doing this for all of us. It's a great thing you do, and thank you.
Thank you. Hang on just a second. Let me sign off. I got some
Yes.
stuff to share with you. Guys, keep coming back. As I said, when we were transitioning back to part two here, I've got Commodores lined up. You may remember Tim Walker, who played at your time period. Tim is
Yep.
coming on soon. I just reconnected with Tim for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
Still looks the same guy. Still lives in Southern California. It's going to be
Right.
an awesome, awesome conversation. Guys, y'all always anchor down.